is not from God. There are a lot of things we could go into on this heresy that was not uncommon in the early church, but I only want to focus on one thing, because it relates to our issue. These false teachers disconnected Christ, the pre-existent eternal one, from the flesh. Somehow they just didn't get profoundly unified. Verse 2 of chapter 4. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God. So these folks evidently were not willing to confess that, and that's how you can know they're not of God. They didn't like the idea of the pre-existent, pure, spiritual, divine Son of God being in the flesh. And here's the reason this is relevant for our question. This view of the person of Christ not being united to a physical body, it's kind of somehow otherwise related to it, evidently had a very practical moral effect on the way these false teachers viewed the Christian life. Just as they disconnected the person of Christ from his ordinary physical life, so they disconnected being a Christian from ordinary physical Christian life. They didn't like this kind of union in Christ. They didn't like it in us. And they were reinventing Christianity so that you could somehow be spiritual, be a Christian, and not have it show up in flesh. Make a difference in flesh. What you do with your body, your brain, your lips, your hands, your feet. Just get the heebie-jeebies when they thought about this kind of mingling of great, beautiful, noble, high, spiritual reality and the flesh of human life. And the clearest place in our text to see them go to work on this is chapter 3, verse 7. John says, little children, let no one deceive you. So he's got these folks in mind here, right? We've seen their Christological heresy, what they get wrong about Jesus, namely, the Christ has not come in the flesh. Now what's he going to say? Verse 7. Little children, let no one deceive you. Whoever practices righteousness is righteous as he is righteous. So what's he shooting at? What he's saying is, beware of false teachers who say you can be righteous and not practice righteousness. Beware of these people who are separating being from doing. This kind of ethereal, spiritual status that you may have, it's not showing up in your hands. Beware of them. John opposes not only their view of Christ, that they disconnect his person and his ordinary bodily life. He also opposes their view of the Christian life, which disconnects the being righteous and the doing righteous. The fleshing out the thing called Christianity inside of me. In this group, they had a pretty consistent view. We don't want Christ messed up in the flesh, and we don't want this thing called being born again messed up in the flesh. And so they just separated the two. The flesh didn't really matter for them, evidently. Didn't really matter for Jesus. Didn't matter in the Christian life. There was no real union with Christ and His flesh. And there isn't any real union in you and your flesh. You can be righteous and not do or practice righteousness. So that's the heresy. And the question is, how does he deal with it? How does he respond to it? And he responds in these ways. Number one, chapter 4, verse 2. He insists first that the flesh of Jesus and the person of the pre-existent Christ are inseparable. They're unified. 1 John 4:2. By this you know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is of God. Notice, by the way, it doesn't say came. It says has come. Read it again. By this you know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God. That tense means something, both in Greek and in English. Different from came. If he had said he came in the flesh, it would sound that was a season. He entered into humanity, and there was a time when that was true of him, but not now. I got a letter from a significant church leader a few years ago that said he thought that was true about Jesus. That's heresy, man. Wrote him a long letter. Told him to take it off his website. Jesus Christ, the God-man, is united in perfect union with the second person of the Trinity forever. He didn't put on humanity like a hat for 33 years and then take it off and vanish into ghostland. When they saw him go, they saw him go, and in like manner he will come again and eat fish with us forever. Humanity, mysterious as it seems, has been folded into the Godhead. He did not despise our flesh. Today, at this very moment, Jesus has a body that if you were there, you could touch with your hand. He has come in the flesh, and he is still in the flesh. The incarnation lasts forever. There'll never be a time when the second person of the Trinity does not have a human nature in perfect union with the divine. So, that's the first response that he gives to the heretics. Your separation of the Christ from Jesus, the physical flesh and blood person, is false. Number two, this is his second response. He emphatically denies the teaching of this false teaching, this heresy, that you can have spiritual being and not physical doing as a confirmation of that spiritual being. In fact, he insists, spiritual being, spiritual reality, the new birth, a new creature in here, must be validated by newness with this stuff right here. These lips, these